a fantabulously awesome day today. I am going to be answering your questions from the comment section. And the first question is from Nikki. I always see buckets in random spots in your videos. What do you keep in those buckets? Well, Nikki, I actually have several buckets, and today inside of my bucket I have another bucket. No, basically what I do, if you see any of these buckets around in any of my videos, usually I'm using it as a trash can. I do keep, typically I keep my buckets all empty just because that way I can just, if I'm getting ready to work on something, I can just throw things into the bucket and then go ahead and start the project. But usually by the time I get everything together, everything's out of the bucket, I use it as a trash can. Or if I'm going out, leaving my home to do a project, I will use it to store whatever I'm taking with me. And in some cases, if it's all I have, you put this top here on the type of buckets I get. A lot of times can just put that on there, and I can actually use it as a step stool if all else fails. So that's pretty much the answers the bucket question. But today, inside of the bucket, I actually have more questions to answer. So I'll get to the next one. And this question is from Nick. Why did you begin doing DIY projects? Well, Nick, the answer to this question actually changed several times. Initially, I'm going to say I began doing DIY projects to save money, and somewhere along the lines, I began to think that it was more so not just to save money. I thought I began doing DIY projects to maybe, because I thought that I could do a better job than anyone else I could ask to do it or to pay to do it. And then now I'm starting to believe that the reason I do DIY projects is just basically as an expression of my own artistic creativity. So I guess that's kind of three answers. Save money, possibly get the job done exactly the way I want, and finally just an expression of my own creativity. And this next question is from Nathan. In your paint videos, I never see you use a primer before you paint the walls. I heard that it was important to use a primer. Preferably, I do not use a primer. There are actually, I'd say, three main reasons why you would use a primer before painting a wall. And the first reason would be to hide stains. The second reason would be to help with adhesion if it's a if it's a shiny surface, or if the surface has previously been painted with an oil-based paint and you're painted with the latex, which latex won't usually stick or adhere for a good period of time to oil. You would use a primer in that case. And the third would be in order to help, if you're using a dark color on the wall, in order to help it to bring out the full color of the color and to not have to use too many coats of paint. So basically, the surfaces that I've been painting so far have not been shiny. They've actually were previously painted with a contractor's grade paint, and so they weren't shiny and there weren't any stains. And although I'd say the majority of the colors that I was using to paint the walls were dark. I painted my bathroom black, so that's a good example. The way that I see it, it's going to take about the same cost and the same amount of time for me to put a primer on first and then put the coats of paint on. So if I'm gonna have to buy a gallon of primer, I just would prefer to buy a gallon of paint. And if I'm gonna have to spend time to paint the wall with primer, I just rather spend that time to paint the wall with paint, and then in the end possibly I won't even have to use a second coat of paint. That's always a possibility, so I just usually kind of do it that way. But in one of my if you happen to see my paint video where I painted my bedroom green, I actually did have a little bit of a problem because I previously painted that wall with my own paint, which is a high grade of paint, and it actually did have a problem adhering, so I ended up having to do 2 coats. But aside from that, so far I have not luckily had to do that, so that's why you haven't seen me use a primer. When I'm doing furniture, however, I do sand down the surface, and there are times when I have to use a stripper on that because usually I'm going to be staining something, and so a lot of things, especially furniture, are previously finished with oil-based solutions. So in those cases, it's a lot more necessary than just in walls. So hope that answers your question. And the next question we have is from Tiffany. What project are you working on now? Well, currently I actually have 2 more videos that I plan to do after this one. And then yesterday I had a shutter that I did in a previous video. I actually affixed those to the wall. And one of them fell yesterday because I attempted to move the distance from the window that I had the shutter. I attempted to move it without actually moving the hardware that I already had affixed, and I thought it would stay. I wasn't too worried about it, but of course it didn't. So that will probably be the next project I do. I don't know if you really call that a project, but that's the next thing on my to-do list, is to put that back where it was. Okay, and the next question is from Brandy. Brandy asks, which of your tools do you use the most? I would have to say, definitely my hammer. Definitely the hammer. That will be the tool that I use the most. And this question is from Tim. What was the very first thing you ever fixed by yourself? Well, aside from the things that I fixed with super glue and tape, hardware-wise, the first thing that I ever fixed by myself was I replaced the bumper cover on a Honda Civic EX that I had several years back. I actually, that would have been a case of trying to save money. It was actually, unfortunately, the accident was my fault, and I was looking at paying a $500 deductible to get them to fix it. I found the actual bumper cover online for about 70 bucks. I got this socket wrench right here, socket wrench set. Got this for about, of course everything falls out. Got this for about 50 bucks from AutoZone. Whoa. And they're going everywhere. And I got that. And then basically back then, it was before I started painting a lot, or before I trusted my painting abilities. So I actually got the car place to paint it, and that was another 50 bucks. So I was looking at 50 for the paint, 50 for the socket wrench set, and 70 for the bumper. So in all, I spent $170 and did the work myself, and it saved me, I guess, about $330. So that would have been that was my first DIY project. And this question is from James. Have you ever hurt yourself working on a DIY project? All the time. I would say possibly every time I do a project, I hurt myself in some kind of way. Now, the amount of hurt that I inflict on myself varies. I know once, one of the scariest things I did, so I'll show you, is this crowbar. As you can imagine, this was back when I was doing car repairs, or when I was doing repairs on my vehicle. I was actually trying to pull out the fender, which was dented in. It's actually auto body work is what I should say. I was trying to pull the fender out and it actually slipped back somehow. I don't remember how I was holding it, probably like this. It slipped back and it actually hit me in the head, and I'm not going to say it knocked me out because I remained conscious the whole time, but it hit me in the head pretty hard, and that was pretty scary. Aside from that, the only other way I'm going to say that I can recall that was really a major injury, I'm going to say, was when I was actually, it wasn't even too much of the project part of it involved. I was just actually opening something that I was using with, it was a box cutter or a razor, which I have around here somewhere, but I can't find it right now. And I was opening it and I slipped and actually sliced down the mole of my arm, which there's still a little bit of a scar on here, but not too much. And the reason it's scarred is because I actually just went and got a butterfly band-aid, put it back together, and kept right on working. I never got it stitched up. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would, but at that time I didn't. So those are my 2 injuries to date that I can account for. So anyways, guys, that's the end of my video for today. I hope that you found the answers to your questions in this video. If you have a question that has not been answered, please feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I will have another video to answer those questions. Hey, I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, put a nail in that like button. Feel free to leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.